Hello and welcome to the 21st Century Hermitage. Today we are looking at seed saving. Now seed saving is so very important. If you think about it, seeds are some of the most valuable things on the planet. I'm not talking about commercial or monetary value, I'm talking about actual value to us as a species and what we can use seeds for. Food, animal feed, medicine, cosmetics, clothing, shelter, oils, all come from plants which grow from seed. Good soil, clean air, clean water, these are the real riches in life. And riches we will learn to appreciate more as our environment gets increasingly more fragile. There are so many benefits associated with seed saving and many different reasons why people start saving seed. Save money. You may be a dedicated enthusiast, or you might like to become a bit more self-sufficient. It's a really good idea to save your own seed. Things that you have to consider before you start saving seed. Firstly, concentrate on what does like to grow in your garden or allotment. Do not concentrate on what struggles in your area, as you want to harvest the best seed possible from the healthiest plants possible. Once you discover which varieties love to grow in your garden or allotment, you then have to seek out the best possible seed stock. If you want to grow for seed, then you need to source some organic, untreated heirloom seeds, and there's a lot of dedicated people out there producing them. Do a search and support these small businesses producing these really good heirloom seeds. You want to stay well clear of is F1 hybrid seeds or any seed from large commercial companies. From such large companies will be modified and bred so you can't collect seed from their plants. In this video, which is aimed at beginners, I'm going to demonstrate how to gather seed from some domestic vegetable varieties, also some flowers and wild food species as well. First on the agenda are runner beans, which we've grown up this tree here. If runner beans get any bigger than this, any less flexible, or you can see and feel the beans developing inside them, I'd say leave it for seed stock. But that depends on which part of the bean you want to eat. In the UK we tend to eat the green of the bean, the shell. Places like Austria, they tend to eat the bean themselves. The hardest thing about saving bean seed is resisting temptation to pick your best pods, because to keep the seed you have to let the pod grow fully, and then soon enough it will start to turn brown and eventually die. It's very tempting to pick your best pods, but to save your best seed you need to save the best pods in situ. Okay, so about 5 or 6 weeks after the growing stage, your runner bean pod will look like this. It's dry, it's crispy, you can feel that's ready to be opened. That's really ready to come open. If we open it, you will see some very nice beans. They're very colourful, scarlet runner beans. Of course you can save these to plant next year, and you can also save them to eat casseroles and stews and things like that. But I'm keeping all these to replant more, because this is one of my favourite vegetables. There we go, and from that one pod we have 6 really healthy looking beans. They'll make some lovely plants, they will. And I think this whole row was only about 15 plants, so you can see how many plants you can get just by growing for seed in one season. It's the same principle with either French beans like these behind me or broad beans. You leave the pods on the vine for about 5-6 weeks after the growing season, the eating stage rather. These aren't quite there, but I'm going to pull one over just to show you. They're not quite ready, but there you go. Lovely healthy beans. These are going to probably take another week, I'd say. And when you have harvested your beans, to be extra sure there's no moisture, because that's you don't want really much moisture in when you're saving beans, you can put them in a cardboard box with some paper toweling and leave that somewhere dark and dry, just to make extra sure before you store them away in airtight sterilised jars. You'll see this half of our crop here we haven't harvested for food at all. We've let it all go to seed, only eating beans from this side. The more beans you pick, the more will grow. If you just leave them in situ for seed, then you won't get any more, So it's about choosing when you have a really good crop that looks really good and leaving it there to save it completely for seed. But you can see how many seeds we will get from this 1 year's growth. Okay, we've now harvested the French beans, and you see how many pods we've got there and how much seed we'll get. Again, this is all grown from one packet. As I said before, once they're now they've been picked, you'll see it's coming back into flower again. The plants are, oh, just broke that one. The plants are coming back into flower again, and it's producing vegetables again. See, that's a bonus. This year our garden looks a lot more scruffier than it normally would, because we've been growing a lot of things purely for seed and letting them go a bit wild and a bit unsightly, like these onion flowers here. Wildlife really does appreciate you letting onions go to flower too. Lots and lots of species appreciate them. Now they will go to flower in their second year, and at the end of the season they'll begin to die and fall over. That's how onions spread their seed naturally in the wild. They flop over and they touch the ground. So it's at that point that you want to harvest your seed from your onions. Pull some of these off, and in these little heads you'll find the black onion seed. There's your little black onion seeds. They're hidden in these little tiny heads. Just give them a rub and they should come out. For harvesting the onion heads, to help them dry out, you can put them behind a pane of glass or in a window ledge, a greenhouse, or in our case on the dashboard of our vehicle. Basically the flowering heads will turn white and they'll literally crack open and release the seed on their own. So to illustrate how it does that, I'll just tap again and you'll see the seed basically just falls out. Give it a wee tap. Now that's just from one tiny head, so you can imagine how much onion seed we're going to have for next season. In this patch we have rare heritage onions and carrots, which are companion planted. Again, we're growing this for seed, so we'll be leaving these in over the winter, or at least the best examples, then they will flower the following year when we'll harvest the seed. So what you're looking for in individuals that you harvest seed from obviously is size, health, taste, resilience to weather, pests, disease. Basically they select themselves. Okay, here's quite a big carrot, so probably a candidate for taking seed from. Okay, and on to chard. This is or was a chard plant. Again, in the second year of growth it will flower and bolt, and people think that's a bad thing, but not if you're gathering your own seed. If we take a closer look at this. Okay, so these are the seeds here. I pick the best, healthiest, largest ones I can. Ooh. You can get a lot of seed from one plant. If you're not familiar with chard but you are beetroot, you'll notice that the seeds are practically the same. You can save these for next spring, or they're ready to plant late in the season, which is what I'm going to do with these for a winter crop. What I do with them is I soak them in a little bit of water in the sunlight for an hour or so before I plant them, or if you've got it, add to the water a couple of drops of organic seaweed compound, which really gives them a good head start. In the case of pumpkins, squash and courgettes, you take the seed from them about 4 weeks after harvesting. You can either leave them in situ in the sun if you live in a nice warm climate, or you can put them behind a window or in a greenhouse for a few weeks for the outer shell to harden off. This basically prepares the vegetable for itself to be stored over the winter, and any time after that you can harvest the seeds. Simply when you're ready to cook it, just cut it open, scoop the seeds out, give them a wash, dry them, very important, and leave them somewhere cool and dry to dry off before storing them in a sterilised jar. Okay, chickpeas. When chickpeas died off and they're ready to be harvested, they will sound like a rattle. At this point you can harvest them either for seed or to store for food for the winter. Sunflower, self-explanatory. We all know where the seed is. But this is a great example of a plant for beginners and for younger people to grow and start to learn about seed collecting. In fact, seed can be gathered from many flowering heads, like with this feverfew. Here's the feverfew in bloom, and this is feverfew when it should be harvested for seed. You'll see that the heads are dry and not rotted. It's the end of summer. This is when the plant would naturally reseed itself. Okay, and there's the feverfew seed. Again, it's about knowing where the plant produces its seed and when to harvest it. Same rules apply with flowers like marigold. There's the flower in bloom, there's the flower beginning to die off, and the seed, you'll see, is already starting to form inside that. Once that's completely dry, will be the time to harvest your marigold seed. You can see the seeds inside there, they look almost like little porcupine quills. Very easy to distinguish. This is a dried marigold head from a couple of years ago. I crack it open. You'll see there the dry seed. What we do here at the Hermitage is we take wild species and we try and cultivate them at home in the garden, as we find this more ethical than foraging. Wild seed collecting is mostly about trial and error, but you know, just get out there and enjoy it. Collecting seed from wild plants can be tricky. Some bear a resemblance to domestic varieties, others, looking for seed within them will be unprecedented to anything you've experienced. Seed from wild plants can be tricky or easy. Some grow seed in a pod, like domestic beans. Others, you really have to look for them and discover it for yourself. A good example of a wild plant that grows its seeds in a pod that I like to forage is Jack by the hedge. Jack by the hedge is ready to drop its seed a little bit earlier on in the season than currently, about midsummer. So at midsummer we pulled these into the garage and we had them dry. And if you look inside one, you can see tiny seeds. There we go, and that's Jack by the hedge. Now these are really small and they're dried and they're ready to store because they've been in the garage for a few months, so I'm going to put those straight into a little polythene bag before I lose them. So you'll see with seed collecting that it becomes common sense, and one thing is very much like the other, and after a while you get to use your own judgment, study the plant, find out where the seed is and start saving it for yourself and working out how to do it for yourself. Failing that, buy a very good book from Amazon. It's worth doing. This, for example, is wild fennel. Now, I've never grown it before or gathered seed from it, but experience tells me it's these little yellow flowering heads that will be the seeds, or have the seeds inside them. In fact, I can see that already these little flowering heads are starting to close and resemble fennel seeds like you might have used in your kitchen. This, of course, is the tip of the iceberg lettuce. But once you know a few basics and the life cycle of any given plant, then it's not hard to teach yourself more about seed saving. Okay, we really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give us a like and don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Facebook and on Instagram. But most importantly of all, please not only save seed but share seed with your friends, neighbours and relatives. It's very important. Bye bye.